Hey everybody, it is Mary Hyatt and welcome to my YouTube live show. I am so excited to have you here. August 1st, can you believe we are already in August? It is just crazy to me that is, we are like well on our way to fall, which I'm very excited about because Nashville is hot and I'm ready for some cooler weather, I will be honest. So y'all, I have to have you here. That is why we figure this out before we actually go live. Okay, so we are live, which is awesome. We are officially there. But my show today is going to be all about the gifts of forgiveness. I'm going to share a little bit about my journey of forgiving my ex-husband and sort of a recent process with that. And I have a really amazing free resource for you guys to help practice forgiveness that I'm going to tell you about towards the end of the show. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it and get going. Welcome everybody to the Mary Hyatt Show. Of course, I am your host, Mary Hyatt, and I have a fabulous episode for you today. Episode number 48, the 3 gifts of forgiveness. Now, I was thinking about what it is that I wanted to talk about for this episode, and I had a recent call with my coach. And I've been going through some sort of evolvement, I'll say, in my current relationship, a lot of healing in my relationship to men. And I love being in relationship with anybody, just in general, whether it's your friends or a parent or a colleague or a significant other or partner, because what happens, as you guys probably know, is that your relationships end up being a giant mirror for yourself. And it really gives us the opportunity to look at sort of what's going on inside of ourselves and our own process. And so this past week I was talking to my coach and I realized that I needed some deep healing around men. And in particular, my ex-husband. I had my old wedding anniversary a couple days ago that sort of like stirred up all of this stuff and analyzing that relationship and looking into, all right, what work still needs to be done to let go, to release and fully participate in the current relationship that I'm in right now. And it's interesting. I mean, some of y'all know my story about divorce, and I was married for almost 10 years and ended up getting divorced. And so I've, as you can imagine, done a lot of work around this. In particular, I have done a lot of self-forgiveness. I've had to really look at the role that I was playing inside of that relationship. I really had to look at what I contributed, what I didn't contribute, what I said, what I didn't say, what I did, what I didn't do. Like, where did I need to forgive myself for the person that I was that contributed to the ending of a marriage? And one of the things that I realized is that I sort of in all areas of life tend to blame myself so much to the point that I don't even really realize that I need to forgive someone else. And it's interesting how we develop these coping mechanisms. But for me, it was like, I learned a long time ago, if I sort of took on all the responsibility and sort of became this martyr and over-identified with what was going on, then somebody would stop hurting me. Like, if in a situation where 2 people are to blame, if I took on all the responsibility, if I said, okay, I'm sorry, it's all my fault, it's totally all my fault, I'm the one to blame, then when that happened, then it got the other person to back off. And so I learned this as a coping mechanism to sort of become the martyr, take on more than what I needed to take on. And so what that looked like as I was analyzing my previous marriage was, okay, I've got to do a lot of self-forgiveness. Like, it's all my fault. I'm the reason that this fell apart. Where can I take responsibility? Where can I take ownership? And obviously, this isn't healthy, y'all. I mean, I can be the first to admit, this is not healthy to over sort of blame yourself, because it takes away all of your power. It takes away all the accountability for the other person, for their portion, what they bring to the table. And it doesn't allow you the opportunity to forgive. And so I really recently realized this as I was sort of processing a lot of old wounds and resentments that were coming up. I was like, ooh, I didn't know that was below the surface. Like, ooh, I don't feel good. I didn't know that I was still angry and that I was still having a hard time with this. And I thought because I had done all this work at forgiving myself and taking ownership and responsibility, even meeting with him to ask for forgiveness for my part of it, I was missing a big piece that was keeping me stuck, that was keeping me trapped in the patterns of behavior of an old relationship, because I hadn't released and forgiven him for his role in our relationship and my perceived, experience of hurt, my perceived experience of dysfunction, my perceived experience of what went awry within our relationship, what I thought he should do different, or expectations, or whatever, the ways that I felt hurt by him, that I needed to forgive him, along with forgiving myself, for sure. And so what happened is I started bringing in all this old baggage of my relationship into my current relationship and sort of projecting all this junk onto him, which of course is totally not fair. He wasn't in that relationship. He is a different person, and our relationship is so different. But I sort of was hiding under this lens of, okay, well, he's the good guy. He didn't do anything wrong. It was all my fault. But the truth is in any relationship, no matter what happens, there are always two people making the decisions, two people making their own choices. And so I have been going through sort of with these lunar eclipses and Mercury retrograde and all the planetary stuff that's going on, full moon. You guys, I'm sure, have been feeling maybe some heightened energy. I had to work on a new and deeper level of forgiveness so that I could truly release and let go and move on and create a new story in my current relationship. And like I said, I've done a lot of this self-forgiveness before. I know you've probably heard me talk about this before. But for example, I would say things like, with my body, I was such an abuser of my body. And so today we're going to be talking a lot about forgiving others. But I don't want to leave you hanging, because there is a lot of forgiveness that we do have to do for ourselves. That is our responsibility. That is worth taking ownership for. And so, like, for my body, the ways that I abused it, the ways that I judged it, the ways that I hated it, that I yelled at it, that I criticized it, that I berated it. Y'all have heard me talk about my body bully and how strong my body bully was. And so I learned how to do self-forgiveness with my body. So some of the things that I would say along the way is, I forgive myself for buying into the misbelief that I am unlovable. I forgive myself for judging myself as fat, as gross, as undesirable. I forgive myself for buying into the misbelief that I deserve punishment for eating a cookie today. Or I forgive myself for buying into the misbelief that my only value comes from being 10 pounds lighter than I am today. Or I forgive myself for buying into the misbelief that I am a fraud, that I should be in a different place right now, that I should earn love to try to make up for my body and its brokenness, for buying into the misbelief that I am not enough. Please, body, sweet body, please forgive me. I've done a lot of work around that. And I did an episode on this, kind of what is self-forgiveness for our bodies. So if you want to listen to that episode, it is episode number 7. So if you're listening to the podcast, go to episode number 7 and you can listen to that. And of course, if you are watching this on YouTube Live, I have linked to that episode below so you can watch that, episode number 7. But I needed to shift the focus for this time off of myself and shift to forgiving others. And here's what I learned. I learned that there are 3 gifts of forgiveness, which is so powerful because I think oftentimes when we think about forgiveness, we don't really know how to do it. We don't really know the benefit of it. Like, I was raised in the church and it was kind of like, it's the right thing to do. It's the good thing to do to forgive your neighbor. Like, as a Christian, it's sort of part of our good behavior is forgiveness. But we don't really understand what we receive by forgiving. We don't really understand that forgiving's not just a good thing in principle or in theory or something that God told us to do. And if you were raised in a different home that wasn't a Christian home, or you had some kind of other experience of forgiveness, it's very rare that our parents sit down and talk to us about the power of forgiveness, what it does for us, what it frees us from, what the gifts are for forgiveness. Because to me, when it feels like an obligation, like something that we just have to do to check off the box, something that is so that we sort of stay within the good graces of God and, Christ forgave us, so we need to forgive. But we don't really stop to think about, okay, sort of what's the wisdom behind that? What is the payoff behind that? What are we going to receive by forgiving? Because once I can kind of understand that internal motivation of, okay, when I forgive, this is what I'm going to get in return. Like, there's wisdom here. There's a reason behind the encouragement of forgiveness, but we're not usually taught that as children. It's just something that we do so that, we can kind of let the other person off the hook and move on. But here is what I know. The first gift of forgiveness is that it frees us from prison. So let's take a minute to soak that in. It frees us from our own prison. And for those of you who are watching live with me on YouTube, I just want to take a second to say hello. Hi. Hey, Samantha. If you're listening to the podcast, come over to the YouTube live show and subscribe and hang out with us for a second on the actual live show every Wednesday at 1 o'clock Central, because we interact, we get to talk, and it's really fun. And of course, if you're driving around and you're listening to the audio version of this on the podcast, that's awesome too. And thank you for doing that. Okay, so this frees us from prison. When we don't forgive ourselves, when we don't forgive other people, we live in prison. All of our energy is focused on living according to the past. What happened? What we did? What others did to us? It's like sort of living Groundhog Day, with Bill Murray. That day over and over and over again. We're replaying it like a broken record inside of our minds. Well, this happened, or I behaved in this way, and I did this really horrible thing, or they did this really shitty thing to me. And we keep replaying in our mind this story of suffering, this story of abuse, of wrong, of guilt, of shame. And when our mind is focused on that all the time, about that story, about what happened to us, the past, what we did, how we behaved, who we were, it's like we end up staying in the energetic vibration of that season of life. It's like we're aligned with that past. We get stuck there. We align with it. Our energy aligns with it because we're playing it over and over again. And once we do that in our mind, it becomes real in the present. It feels as though it's happening to ourselves over and over again, and we're sort of re-traumatizing ourselves, or we're living in this really dysfunctional cycle of shame or guilt that we believe we are a bad person for what we did. And we get stuck in this cycle. We get stuck in that replay of our lives. And I love this quote from Louise Hay, and she says, "Until we forgive ourselves, we will be trapped in a prison of righteous resentment. Forgiveness is the only way out of this prison. Forgiveness sets us free." And so when you think about what it is that you need forgiveness of. Like for me with my body, I needed to forgive myself for abusing my body for so many years. I needed to forgive myself for believing I wasn't lovable. I needed to forgive myself for the ways in which I showed up in my marriage. I needed to forgive myself in the ways that I coped, I numbed, I avoided, I harmed myself. Like I needed to forgive the beliefs that I have surrounding marriage, surrounding abundance, surrounding joy, surrounding happiness. Because I was living inside of that prison. And then consequently, I also was living in this prison of not forgiving my ex. And you can think about it in your own life, maybe not forgiving a parent, or a sibling, or a teacher, or a pastor, or a friend for some way that they have wronged and hurt you, forgiving an abuser. We get stuck in prison when we don't let go. We relive that over and over and over and over again. And that bitterness, that criticizing, that resentment, that judgment eats us from the inside out. And Robert Holden would say, there is only one way to forgive your past, and that is to practice forgiveness. Without forgiveness, you can't get past your history. You feel stuck. Your life isn't moving on because you haven't moved on. The present can't comfort you because you're not really there. The future looks like more of the same because you see only your past. In reality, the past is over, but it isn't over in your mind. And that is why you are still living in pain. Think about that. In reality, the past is over. We cannot change what happened. We don't get a redo. We cannot fix it. We cannot do something differently. We cannot remove ourselves from the situation. And yeah, it would be really lovely to say like, God, if it had only gone this way, or if he'd only done that, or if she only, said this, then everything in my life would be better. Everything would be different. But the truth is, we cannot go back to our past and change it. The past is over. But we have a choice whether it's over in our minds or not. Whether we keep reliving the hurt, reliving the shame, reliving the abuse, reliving that old story. And when we are still in pain, it is because we have not let go of something in our past. We have not forgiven ourselves, or we have not forgiven someone else. That should be a giant, beautiful, sobering wake-up call. That we have the choice to shift this. And this is why I love the second gift of forgiveness, which is that it invites us into a bigger story. What I absolutely love about forgiveness is that it invites us into a bigger story. When we forgive, when we let go of the person we were at that time, the person who let that happen in the way that it happened, the person who hurt someone else, the person who hurt ourselves, the person that abused yourself. It gives us this beautiful opportunity to experience a new present, a new future. It gives us the opportunity to shift, to grow, to heal, to change. And when we enter into forgiveness, it moves us out of being the victim. I want to slow this down because I think this is really important. I think we get stuck in this state of being a victim so often. When we exist with the underlying belief that life happens to us and not for us, when life happens to us, when we are stuck in the resentment, the anger, the guilt, and this is just always going to be the way that it is, we are playing the role of the victim. That we have no control, that life is happening to us. And so when we're staying stuck in the past, we can't move forward. We're always going to be hurt by that. Or we're always going to behave in the same way. Well, I didn't have any control of that, and it is what it is. That we are powerless to change and to move on. We stay in that role as the victim. And so what I love about forgiveness is that it invites us into a new story where we can redefine what the past means. We have the opportunity to interpret what we did and what happened to us in a new way. We're going to see it through new eyes when we enter into forgiveness. So it's kind of like we state this new affirmation. I am not my past. Or you might say something like, I am willing to forgive my past. I am willing to forgive what happened, the people that hurt me. We get to step into a new place of control, of empowerment, because in this present moment, when we step out of the past and into this present moment, into this bigger story that moves beyond our past, when we realize that our past does not define us, that we have the opportunity to shift and to change and to create something different, that, y'all, is so freaking powerful. When we forgive, we moved on to the next chapter of our lives. One that is defined by healing, one that is defined by love and grace and evolution, where we don't get stuck there, but we actually get to move on. And we can use our past to change us, to learn, to heal, to grow, to create a different present and a different future, to have better boundaries, to increase our sense of self-worth. Forgiveness opens up the door for us to take responsibility for our lives and to create a new story for our future. That is the second gift of forgiveness. Now, the third gift of forgiveness, and this is probably my favorite and one that I don't think is talked about often, is that forgiveness reminds us that we are lovable. It reminds us that we are lovable. So take a second and think about that. Forgiveness affirms to yourself our most basic truth. I am lovable. When we forgive, it reminds us that we are worthy of grace, of love, and of belonging. That we exist in that no matter what we did, no matter what happened to us, apart from all of our shame, apart from all of our anger, love is bigger than all of that. And when we stay stuck in our past, we have forgotten our lovability. Grace is bigger. We are lovable. Our lovability is not on the line. Our lovability is not on the line. It's not open for negotiation. It can never be changed. It is our very identity. That no matter what, at our core, we are lovable, and nothing can change that. No matter what has happened to us, no matter what anybody did to us, no matter what we have said or done or thought about, none of that changes our most basic truth, that we are lovable. And when we remember how lovable we are, then we are not only able to extend that to ourselves, but that is when we can extend that to the one that we are forgiving. It's not saying that, what this person did is okay, or that it wasn't wrong, or that this was a wrong that was horrific, or whatever happened. But it's saying that you and they are still lovable when we act out of our pain, out of our hurt, out of our fear. Now, let me just say that this takes massive maturity to extend that kind of love to somebody who has wronged you. But forgiveness is like saying, I recognize that not only do I deserve forgiveness for who I have been in moments when I was feeling fear or panic or was triggered or was experiencing fear or hurt, but that same love is extended to you. Forgiveness says that no matter what, you are lovable. And it's probably the most important work that you could ever do. I do this with my clients, my coaching clients all the time. It always centers around lovability. At the end of the day, when you peel everything back, every obstacle, every challenge, every hurt, every moment of feeling stuck, if you boil it down, it is the fear and the misbelief that we are not lovable. That causes all of our suffering when we believe we aren't lovable. So to believe that no matter what, you are lovable, and because of that most basic truth, it is also the same truth for everyone else. And when you extend forgiveness, it's like you are saying and affirming that yes, we are all lovable. That single belief will literally change your life. We have to come back to love. And as Robert Holden says, where there is love, there is forgiveness. With love, forgiveness is so natural, it doesn't even need a name. Love is forgiving. Love dissolves grievances before they turn to poison. Love heals you quicker than a wound appears. Love makes amends so that you don't have to take a wrong turn. Forgiveness is literally letting go of the belief that we are broken, or that other people are broken. And it reminds us that it's okay to be human and that we are all still lovable. That innocence has never left. Our basic goodness has never left. That we still hold that inside of ourselves. And forgiveness reminds us, again, to come back home to that truth. It is an act of deep, deep love, recognizing that we are no different than anyone else, that there actually is no separation between me and them, that everyone deserves grace, and that we are all, at the end of the day, doing the best that we can. And again, it doesn't make anything that happened right or okay. I'm a firm believer in boundaries, but it just recognizes our sameness, the collective lovability. Forgiveness is a release from our past. It allows us to step into a new future where we are free from the prison of our past, of that suffering. All forgiveness is a gift to yourself, which is a beautiful quote from A Course in Miracles. All forgiveness is a gift to yourself. That is why it is powerful to forgive, because it's a gift. We get to be released from prison. We get to be invited into a new story. And we get to remember our most basic truth, that we are lovable. That is the gift of forgiveness. It sets us free. That is the gift. And I know, because I've worked with a lot of people around this, that most people don't really know how to forgive deeply. And just, we sort of have been taught, okay, say it in your mind or say it to somebody, but that doesn't ever really feel like enough. It's oftentimes what happened, that past, the memory of the past still is holding on to us. And so I think about my own childhood, and I think about kind of what we were taught about forgiveness. And like, let's say my sister hit me and she said, "Mary, please forgive me." And I was supposed to kind of look at her and say, "Okay, I forgive you." And then force like some kind of a hug and like, "Okay, now everything's back to normal. Go out and play." But as an adult, number one, it's really rare if we actually get an apology. And so how do we forgive when somebody hasn't asked for our forgiveness? Number one. And how can we learn to forgive ourselves and others in a powerful way that really frees us, that really allows us to let go? So I want to share with you an exercise that I learned from Louise Hay and Robert Holden. I've been quoting them a lot in today's episode, but here is the book. If you're on YouTube, you can see this book. It's called Life Loves You, 7 Spiritual Practices to Heal Your Life. And this is written by Louise Hay and Robert Holden. I've been listening to this on Audible, and I've read pretty much every book that either one of them have ever written, but not this one. So this was a new one for me. And it walks through this beautiful forgiveness exercise called the forgiveness scale. And I can't take credit for this, but I do want to share it with you because it is so incredibly powerful. And I recommend getting this book. Like this book, I just made all of my best girlfriends get it because I was like, oh my gosh, this will totally change your life. You've got to get this book. So I encourage you to grab that. I don't make any money off of it. I just love it. But I also want to share with you, as we're working through this, and I'll explain how to do it, I have a great free resource for you that you can grab called the Forgiveness Guide. And included in the Forgiveness Guide, where I'm going to walk you through this forgiveness scale exercise, I've also included a really beautiful audio meditation for you that you can download and put on your phone and listen to it. And it's a practice of self-forgiveness. And so it's me guiding you through this meditation of forgiving yourself for the ways that you've judged yourself, criticized yourself, abused yourself and your body, forgiving any misbeliefs that you have around the world not being a safe place. And it's just really, really beautiful. So if you were listening to the podcast, you can go to maryhyatt.com/forgiveness, maryhyatt.com/forgiveness to grab a free copy of that guide plus the free audio forgiveness meditation. And if you're on YouTube watching this video, it is linked in the description of the video, so you can just click on that link. Of course, you can also go to maryhyatt.com/forgiveness, but if you want to click straight on the link, it is in the description of this video. So let me kind of walk you through it. Let me explain this because this will help you sort of have a practice for forgiveness. So if just sort of saying like, I forgive this person, if that doesn't feel like enough, this is sort of a deeper level to help you actually do the work of forgiveness. We have to learn how to forgive. Like I said, I really like having the willingness and the intention of forgiving is powerful and important, and saying, I forgive this person in your mind. But I think that to really be released from it, we need something with a little bit more juice, so to speak. So here it is. So this is the forgiveness scale exercise. So what you're doing is you are scaling your level of forgiveness towards a certain person between 0 and 100%. Now, I like to start for myself, forgiving myself, but you can choose anyone. So you can choose a partner if you need to forgive a partner, an ex-husband, an ex-wife, an ex-partner. If you need to forgive your mom or your dad or, your abuser or your children. If you need to forgive a friend or a teacher or a pastor, like whatever's feeling like it resonates with you during this time, whatever's coming up, whoever's coming up. I like to start with myself because that's a really kind of beautiful way to begin this journey. But here's what you're going to do. So pick a person or yourself and get yourself sort of in a meditative space. So if you have an area that's quiet in your home, maybe you want to turn on some music, grab a journal because you're going to be doing this as a writing exercise. And for me, I sort of take a couple deep breaths, sort of get myself into a calm place with the intention that I'm going to work on forgiveness. And then you're going to think about that person. And you're going to just scale, you're going to write this out, scale from 0 to 100%. How much have I forgiven this person? How much have I forgiven this person? Be honest with yourself because now is not the time to kind of do what I do, which is to sort of be like an over responsibility, being the martyr. Like now is the time to say like, the truth is I haven't really forgiven this person very much. There's no wrong answer. Every answer is a good answer. So just be honest. So let's start working on, let's say, forgiving yourself. And so I say, okay, well, I have forgiven myself in the way that I was in my past, and I can think about specific past, 60%. So I've forgiven myself 60%. So first notice what it's like to have forgiven yourself 60%. How does being at 60% affect the way that you live your life? How does it affect your happiness? How does it affect your health? How does it affect your success? Being at 60% of forgiving yourself or forgiving somebody, let's say you've only forgiven your dad 60%. How does that affect your relationship with yourself and with others? How does only forgiving your dad 60% affect your intimacy? affect your trust with other people, affect your ability to connect with them? How does being at 60% affect your relationship to food, to abundance, to money, to creativity, and to your spirituality? So you're sort of taking inventory. What is it like to exist in 60% of forgiveness? Now, for the next step, after you sort of had a moment to reflect on that, and like I said, in this free resource, I'll spell this all out for you so you'll actually get to write it out. You can print this out. It's a PDF, and you can jot through it on the form or take the questions and put it in your journal. But for the next part, you're going to sort of take that 60% and imagine that you were willing to forgive 70% or even 5% more, but we'll just say 70%, 10% more. And once you sort of imagine that, you can say, I am willing to forgive myself 70%, or I'm willing to forgive my dad 70%. Now say this a few times and notice your response. Notice your body. Notice what it feels like to let go just 10% more, to release, to forgive them just 10% more. Stay with that until it feels comfortable, until you sort of feel that shift and that letting go. Now slowly keep moving up that scale. What does it feel like to forgive 80%, 90%? Affirming each time, I'm willing to forgive myself 80%, or I'm willing to forgive myself 90%, or I'm willing to forgive my dad 80% or 90%. And Robert Holden talks about the scale. He says, oh, hang on, wrong one. Okay, there we go. He says, every step you take on the forgiveness scale helps you let go of the basic fear, I am not lovable, and to experience the basic truth of I am lovable. As you affirm the ability to forgive, you're going back to I'm lovable, I'm lovable, and so is this other person. You're offering empathy, you're offering grace, you're extending compassion to that other person in that forgiveness. Forgiveness really is a gift. And in this process, you're going to eventually get to that 100%. You are rehearsing forgiveness. This exercise, this practice is rehearsing forgiveness. It's a way to actively participate in the forgiveness of yourself and for others, to imagine what it's going to feel like to do that. Because eventually, the more you imagine it, the more you practice this forgiveness scale, you truly do end up forgiving. You truly do end up releasing and letting go more and more. It's a willingness to release those blocks through imagining, practicing, and forgiving forgiveness. Now, it's probably going to take a couple times of practicing this for this to take root, but you are actively choosing to step into a new chapter of your life. This is you owning your life and moving from your past into this new story. And again, go to maryhyatt.com/forgiveness to get my forgiveness guide plus the audio meditation for this. And my encouragement to you is to do this practice with this person for 3 days straight. See what happens. See how much more you can release and let go. See how much more that you can let go of that strong hold of that prison in your life. And I love the audio meditation because it really focuses on forgiving yourself for all the times that you've judged yourself, believed you weren't worthy of love, the times that you believed you weren't worthy of success or happiness, the times that you judged your body, your appearance, your ability, your capacity. It's so powerful. And when you combine forgiving yourself and forgiving others, it's like the amount of freedom that you will experience, it's going to feel like you have lost weight, physical weight, because you will literally have let go of that emotional, spiritual weight of holding on to all of that resentment, the guilt, the shame, the pain, the trauma. You get to release that and come back to giving yourself the gift of forgiveness. It is so, so powerful. So I really hope that you will take this to heart. Investigate and see, who is it that I need to forgive? Who have I been unwilling to forgive? Where have I been resisting forgiveness? It can be from decades ago that it's still eating you inside. That resentment, that broken relationship, that being estranged from someone. It can be showing up in your current relationships. And it's certainly probably showing up in the way that you look at yourself and the way that you treat yourself. So give yourself these 3 gifts of forgiveness. Now, I want to thank you for participating in my YouTube live show, for listening to the podcast. And I want to invite you and ask you to subscribe and rate the podcast. So if you're listening to this on the audio version of the podcast, go to the Mary Hyatt Show page where my podcast lives. Scroll down. You can see here, you can rate and review it. Give me 5 stars if you think this has been awesome, if you have loved this episode, if this is something that you would want to share with other people. And even better than rating it, because that takes 5 seconds, I would so love if you could write a review and just share your experience being on the Mary Hyatt Show with me, what you love about it, what it's done in your life, how it's changed your perspective. And that just allows other people to find this show. It allows people to get to hear all of this content as well. So I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. But I will see y'all next Wednesday for another wonderful episode of the Mary Hyatt Show. I can't wait to spend that time with you. And I hope that more and more, little by little, you step into the willingness to forgive and experience the benefits, the gifts, the joy, just the exhale of what this is going to bring into your life. All right, hope you all have a fabulous rest of your week, and I will talk with y'all soon. Bye.